Today, I'd like to talk about the main reasons for Korea's rapid development. Korea, as you all know, has traveled a very successful development path since 1960. It has seen rapid and sustained increases in both the income and non-income dimensions of human development, and it has done so despite a very meager initial endowment of natural resources. A key driver of Korea's progress was a virtuous cycle between economic and social policies, and this has managed to allow the country to harness major currents in human development, such as globalization, technological change, demographic shifts, and urbanization. So let's take these factors one by one. The government started by implementing a pivotal land reform after 1945, and this created a solid middle class and eliminated severe socially corrosive inequality in land holdings. The government also implemented centralized policies to alleviate inequality in society and to promote rural development from the early 1970s. It also put in place a tax benefit system with a very strong redistributive component. Finally, it pursued rapid accumulation of human and physical capital. These policies bolstered productivity and therefore incomes and of course also domestic demand. Effective institutions also helped. These included a well-functioning public administration, consistently applied regulatory and financing arrangements, enforceable property rights, effective rule of law. The government promoted a meritocratic culture and thereby was able to contain corruption and rent-seeking. On the economic side, export-oriented industrialization boosted market size, and it fueled rapid advances in technology and management know-how, while also enhancing competition in the economy and encouraging specialization in production. There was also a rapid government-led enhancement of Korea's public infrastructure in the early 1970s and 80s, and this was key for sustained development. Rapid urbanization and also, in part, the policies applied in the national plans have created growth poles, which facilitated very focused infrastructure investment with a very significant growth impact. Coming to the resource side, development resources were diversified beyond ODA. Massive foreign aid inflows, which initially mainly consisted of US grant assistance, gave way to commercial loans and other ways of using foreign and private savings. And then the government devoted substantial resources to extensive human resource development, and this equipped workers with the relevant and necessary skills and competencies to make it possible to supply the necessary large increases in labor for rapid industrialization. So where was UNDP in all this? UNDP began its operations in Korea in the 1960s, when the Korean government launched its series of national economic development plans. In the 1960s, what was mostly in focus was increasing food production, because this was the highest priority for Korea. Anyone who has spoken with Koreans who have experienced that time will know that food was very scarce and Koreans often went hungry. So in the early stage, UNDP's support focused on areas that could help restore ecosystems and improve food production. Programs included forest management, soil research, water management, and launching various institutes specialized in crop production. So coming to the main priorities of the development program, in subsequent decades, UNDP provided world-class advisory services. It also provided technologies and skills training, and this supported the implementation of Korea's national development plans. So just as an example, industrialization and economic planning were key in the 1970s and 1980s, along with an increasing focus on science and technology. In the 1990s, social and environmental programs came to the forefront. And then, starting from the late 1990s, focus changed again towards development assistance, as Korea was becoming a donor to other countries and worked with UNDP to build up its own capacity in that area. Overall, UNDP implemented some 270 projects, ranging from reforestation and shipbuilding, industry, technical services, to the establishment of skills training centers and environmental protection. So why was all this successful? The remarkable success of Korea's development was made possible by concerted and persistent efforts of the Korean government and Korean citizens. At the same time, extensive and continuous support from the international community, particularly through the United Nations and UNDP, made significant contributions to Korea's development. UNDP supported the Korean national efforts while always injecting progressive ideas and supplying a holistic development perspective. While Korea, in the initial stages, focused very much on a growth-first paradigm, UNDP provided an added value by emphasizing the importance of sustainable human development, emphasizing this aspect already from the 1980s. This phrase seems to be commonplace nowadays, but it certainly was not so common back in those days. So early on, UNDP helped Korea look into the issues of protecting the environment, promoting gender equality and the rights of social minorities, and also supporting civil society organizations. For example, already in 1974, UNDP introduced skills development in environment and air pollution monitoring. Let's turn to how the lessons of Korea's experience can be applied to other countries. Of course, Korea has shown a rise from the devastation of the Korean War to become the world's 11th largest economy and a market contributor of development aid today. And this is a truly inspiring path. Korea made incredible progress, and that has not been very common in the history of the world. Not only some countries were able to achieve this. As a result, developing countries today are very keen to benefit from Korea's practical experience and knowledge. In 2009, Korea has become an OECD DAC member and pledged to provide salient lessons from its past experience to developing countries. In several areas, notably the government's anti-corruption assessment methodology and Seoul Metropolitan Government's clean construction system, Korea is already conveying its know-how, duly adapted to partner countries' realities, assisted by the Seoul Policy Centre of UNDP. And this is a highly successful area of work which will be complemented with similar endeavors in other areas as well. Of course, not all aspects of the development path that Korea has traveled are available to developing countries today. For instance, there is an aggregate constraint on what countries altogether, countries of the world, can do. It is a salient aspect of the development path of countries in the past, starting from Britain in the 17th century, that they have gone through a phase which was a highly polluting phase. And they could do that because they were the only country developing in that way at that time. This was followed by many other countries in Western Europe, in the United States, and so on. And the problem we are facing today is that if huge countries, developing countries, were to attempt to develop the same way, then jointly they would be taxing the ability of the earth to sustain humankind at that scale beyond its limits. Just as an example, we would need 3.3 planet Earths if everyone in the world lived the lifestyle of a typical Korean citizen. And this is a huge challenge, requiring nimble adjustments in the future. The way to solve this is not to say that countries today cannot embark on a rapid development path, but to help them in every possible way, most notably through technology transfer and know-how, transfer of know-how in many different ways, so that they can actually leapfrog that phase and they can nevertheless continue to develop. There is another constraint, and that is that the global consensus appears less conducive today to the pursuit of a Korean-style export-oriented growth model than a few decades ago. But the underlying economic argument for an export-oriented growth model remains as intact as ever. So conveying these lessons from Korea's successful past human development record can help developing countries in many ways. They can learn from what was done right. They can leapfrog those path segments which are not available in aggregate for all countries today. And this way, what can happen is something very important. This way, Korea can critically contribute to attaining the fundamental promise of Agenda 2030, which is leaving no one behind.